for last 1 minute. After then, we'll start. So
I understand.
Yeah. Please, Jinu, put the file. Yeah, take the file, putting on the chatting room.
Okay, I will do that.
To share it with other audience. So. Yes, all the participants of this session can download the file from chatting room. So you can see the file on the screen, or you can download the file and use it with your computer. So, okay. Let's start our discussion session. Yeah. I'm very pleased to preside over this session, and I'm pleased to introduce Professor Tomonaga Tairako. He is a professor of Hitotsubashi University in Japan, and he has published many articles and books in Japan about the Marxism method. And recently he published several papers on the concept of Versachlichung and Verdinglichung, as is presented today. So the paper for today's presentation has lots of interesting arguments. So let's first Professor Tomonaga present his argument for 40 minutes, and then I'll give him several short questions and then open the session for other audience. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Tomonaga, and please start your presentation.
Yes, thank you very much for introducing me. And I'm very glad to be able to make my presentation to all participants and to be able to discuss with you about very important subject. So I start from the page 1, chapter 1, reification, signification. What characterizes capitalist commodity society consists in a uniquely social character of private laborers that, although totally dependent on each other, are deprived of socialness. In this society, social relations of private workers to each other do not appear as social relations in terms of labor, but assume an inverted form of appearance as social relations of things to each other. Thus, the inversion in German Verkehrung of social relations of persons into social relations of things in German Sachen to things can be defined as reification, in German Versachlichung. Through this switch, furthermore, the social character of private labor comes to appear as a socio-natural quality inherent in a commodity as a thing, in German Ding. The commodity phenomenally appears to inherently acquire this natural quality even outside the social relations of things to each other. The inversion of social relations of things into the socio-natural qualities of things and the following deepening of concealment and mystification of social relations can be defined as signification, in German Verdinglichung. So signification is, there is no corresponding word in English corresponds to fair dignity. Therefore, I have to invent myself such queer translation signification. Therefore, Marx's theory of reification signification consists of three logical stages. Firstly, the inversion of relations between persons into those of things, namely reification. Secondly, the inversion of reified relations of things into the socio-natural qualities of things, namely signification. And finally, the inversion of production relations among persons into reified signified relations of things that embody socio-natural qualities. Signification as the coalescence of social determinations with natural material determinations constitutes a base for fetishism in the everyday representations in bourgeois society. However, signification itself must be distinguished from fetishism because fetishism is related to the inverted, distorted consciousness caused by the signification, while signification is related to the inverted reality of the economic system, which cannot be reduced to inverted, distorted consciousness. So now I go to the last two lines of page 2. Thus, we can understand that Marx's theory of reification signification, by means of which we can disclose anything that appears as a natural matter or content, as an inverted form of social relations between human beings, owes its logical foundation to Hegel's theory of reflection in his logic, while at the same time, we can understand how closely Hegel's logic is interrelated to the historical structure of modern bourgeois society. So I go to the chapter 2. How does Mochizuki underestimate reification signification? Mochizuki thinks that productive forces and cooperation of workers acquired in the capitalist era directly serve as an economic base of the socialist mode of production, which at first blush seems to be acceptable as an interpretation of Marx's Capital, but in fact leads to a serious misunderstanding of it. I skip quotation, then I go the next paragraph. He considers that a system of common cooperation division of labor inside a capitalist corporation compulsorily developed in antagonism to nature and workers factually causes universal development of individuals that secretly advances behind a heavy and thick curtain of alienation. By introducing such a tricky phrase as a thick veil of alienation, he makes light of all serious conflicts in capitalist society by means of the metaphor of a veil, which could easily be stripped off because it does not physically adhere to a body. The reason that he could not consistently make a critical analysis of capitalism consists in his incompetence to understand Marx's theory of reification, signification. So I go to page 3. I skip the quotation, page 4. Sorry. I go to page 4. From the above quoted sentence, things are not simple things, but things as relations that embody a relation of human being to nature. We see that he distinguishes thing from that. However, he fails to understand that, according to Marx, reification necessarily develops into signification, by which things as relations are inverted into simple things, in which social relational determinations are no longer visible and transformed into socio-natural qualities that adhere to natural things. These Socio-natural qualities enables products of past labor in terms of natural things to rule over human beings, like natural laws, and to cause fetishism in bourgeois society. Marx's criticism of bourgeois society is focused on a totally, not only reified, but also signified society. Georg Lukács, in History of Class Consciousness, is distinguished from any other Marxist theorist of the 20th century for his conceptual selection of signification instead of reification as the most important key concept. Although in his work, he uses reification and signification in a similar meaning, he prefers signification to reification because he comprehends fundamental contradictions in bourgeois society in terms of signification, namely Verdinglichung. Considering that Marx mainly develops his theory of signification in the third volume of Capital, Lukács is consistent with Marx because the Lukács, in the most important chapter of the book, Signification and Consciousness of the Proletariat, refers to the third volume of Capital as main resources for his theoretical construction, although, as usual, other Marxist researchers refer to no more than the first chapter of the first volume of Capital as relevant to reification. They reduce the antagonistic character of the capitalist system to reification and fetishism. Anyone, like Mochizuki, that disregards signification can see no more than positive aspects of bourgeois society. So I go to page 5, go to the third chapter 3, Marx's concept of productive forces of capital. Marx's theory of reification and signification begins with commodities and further develops through money to capital. One of the reasons that his notion of signification has attracted little attention of many Marxist scholars is that they, like Mochizuki, have reduced signification to commodity fetishism. Marx's theory of signification not only concerns itself with an explanation of fetishism, but also refers to a theoretical foundation of different forms of capital signification. It is just on the stage of capital signification that capital as a special relation of production coalesces with machinery, sciences, and technology so that capital can create the productive forces unique to capitalism. I go to page 6 to the second paragraph. Marx defines signification in the capitalist production process as a coalescence of capital as a determined production relation with the means of production itself in the following way. I read the quotation. Based on capitalist production, this competency of objectified labor to transform itself into capital appears as inherent in the means of production itself. Therefore, it appears eminently as capital, and therefore capital appears as a thing, although it represents a determined relation of production. I go to section 2, real subsumption of labor and capital. Marx defines formal subsumption of labor and capital as a process of formally transforming a production process equipped with existing technical facilities into a capitalist mode of production simply by introducing wage labor. On the other hand, real subsumption of labor and capital is defined as a process in which the capitalist relation of production is able to create a completely new productive forces that can never be developed without the capitalist mode of production. These historically new productive forces unique to capitalist production are called productive forces of capital. Marx defines real subsumption of labor and capital as a mode of production unique to capitalism that makes the production of relative surplus value possible by constantly causing technological revolution in the production process. Capital owes it to capital signification that capital obtains such power to systematically intervene in the material process and to constantly transform it in a scientific technological way. The correspondence of social relational elements with material natural elements in capital signification enables capital to fundamentally change material natural processes by manipulating social natural elements. Capital creates a production system in which it subsumes even science and itself, accommodates them to the requirement of capital, and constantly applies any scientific achievements to the production process. In this sense, the theory of the real subsumption of labor under capital must theoretically imply the real subsumption of sciences under capital. Capitalist production no longer depends on the skills of workers, but mainly on the direct application of sciences to production. So I go to section 3, sciences as productive forces of capital. Productive forces of capital combine productive forces with production relations into one signified entity. In this sense, sciences and technologies in the capitalist era are imprinted with a character as signified capital, which enables the capitalist production system to deeply intervene in the natural metabolism and the body and soul of human beings on an unprecedented scale. This is the reason that technologies developed in capitalism can hardly be transferred into countries and regions where capitalist relations of production, armed with rational management and a well-organized market system, are less developed, as many examples of the failure of attempts to introduce advanced technologies to developing countries demonstrate. Sciences are the most influential forms of capital signification and fetishism in modern capitalism. They seem to be general intellectual achievements of human beings, exempt from any capitalist characteristics. Even pure natural sciences like mathematics, physics, and chemistry could have capitalist power relations built in, although they appear to be general achievements of humanity. Scientific socialism that a priori distinguishes sciences as such from their capitalist use and regards scientific truth as one of the driving forces to overcome capitalism is a typical form of fetishism in capitalism, because scientific socialism does not understand sciences in terms of capital signification and takes their signified form for pure scientific truth. I go to chapter 4. Marx differentiates between two different concepts of productive forces. The one refers to productive forces conceptually distinguished from production relations and common to their different forms, while the other concept refers to productive forces of capital unique to capitalism that, as a result of capital signification, coalesce with capitalist production relations. Mochizuki fails to exactly distinguish the latter from the former. So I go to, I read the quotation page. He writes, a social productive force of labor is nothing but a common labor if we strip off a veil of alienation from it, although under the rule of capital, it seemingly appears as a productive force of capital. Under productive forces of capital, this veil of alienation could not be stripped off from the main body of productive forces without damaging them, because owing to signification, it inseparably adheres to them. Without considering the capitalist character of productive forces, we cannot exactly understand the problem about the role played by productive forces in the transition from capitalism to socialism. Productive forces of capital cannot work without corresponding capitalist production relations. Therefore, they cannot directly serve as basic productive forces for the association workers in a post-capitalist society. In the Civil War in France, Marx wrote, the working class cannot simply lay hold of the ready-made state machinery and wield it for its own purposes. In a similar way, we should say that the working class cannot simply lay hold of the hold of the ready-made productive forces inherited from capitalism and wield them for its own purposes. In other words, it cannot organize workers' associations simply by changing relations of property concerning means of labor and introducing the right of workers to make a decision over management while simply taking over productive forces from capitalism. Workers must fundamentally transform productive forces in terms of their construction and function to authentically realize workers' associations in a post-capitalist society. So I go to page 10 and third paragraph. Marx writes, large-scale industry in its capitalist form reproduces the old division of labor. By this remark, he does not mean at all that the capitalist mode of production has tendencies to break productive forces based upon large-scale industry. This can only minimize a quantity of labor input per unit of product by reproducing the old division of labor. It is important to note that productive forces of capital has not the same meaning as a capitalist form of large-scale industry, but comprises even the nature of it, namely the technological application of sciences to the production process. Traditional Marxists identify productive forces of capital with the capitalist form of large-scale industry, which leads them to think that its nature could easily be disconnected from its capitalist form, so that the transition to a socialist mode of production could be achieved simply by stripping off the capitalist form. Remember Mochizuki's favorite phrase, by stripping off a thick veil of alienation. The history of socialism in the 20th century demonstrates what a severe destiny the socialist regime that inherited ready-made productive forces from capitalism had to suffer. The failure of socialist system in the Soviet Union and other East European countries demonstrated that these ready-made productive forces could not work without capitalist management and market mechanism. On the other hand, the success of Chinese socialism since the introduction of economic reforms and open door policies demonstrated that a modern socialist system could successfully be developed only by systematically introducing capital-labor relations, an overall market system in commodities, wage labor, capital, and finance, and a full-fledged joint stock company system. The amazing development of information technologies is, under contemporary global capitalism, accelerating the rupture between physical and mental labor in production processes and aggravating the subjugation of workers. IT facilities increasingly substitute human labor and at the same time make it increasingly useless and void of spiritual dignity. In this sense, we are still living in the same labor condition described by Marx about 150 years ago. I don't read the quotation. I go to the next paragraph. The late Marx increasingly came to understand how long it would take the human being to overcome alienation of workers from mental labor caused by productive forces of capital and the real subsumption of labor and capital. Consequently, Marx became convinced that the conflict between mental labor and manual one labor will in principle continue even in the first phase of communism, because he, in the Critique of Gotha program, wrote, only in a higher stage of communist society, individuals are no longer subject to the division of labor in a servile way, and the conflict between mental labor and manual labor disappears. Contrary to Marx, Mochizuki described the production process in a capitalist large-scale industry in an idyllic way. I don't read the quotation. Go to the next paragraph. From the above quoted sentences, we can see that he takes no account of the rule of machinery as signified capital over workers that uninterruptedly degenerate their intellectual potentialities, so that he, in a strange way, understands the capitalist labor process as a process in which workers, in terms of technical experts and specialists, intellectually control the labor process, while capitalists no longer play any substantial role. Now I go to page 14, chapter 5. Chapter 5. According to Mochizuki, there was a theoretical discrepancy between Marx and Engels in the first chapter on Feuerbach of German ideology, so that we should carefully dissect passages ascribable to Marx from those ascribable to Engels. He names this problem a sharing problem, Marx's share versus Engels' share. Marx's share refers to a theory of development of division of labor and communication in German fair care, according to which human history advances from individuals in communities through a division of manufactures from agriculture, and large-scale industry based upon a division of labor in bourgeois society to an association of free individuals as perfection of universal communication. According to Mochizuki, there is no room for the abolition of division of labor in Marx's theory. On the other hand, Engels' share refers to a theory of a division of labor in terms of private property and class rule, according to which human history advances from patriarchal family, which comprises latent slavery within itself through different forms of private property and class rule, to the communist revolution, which brings about the abolition of private property and a division of labor. I go to page 15. According to Mochizuki, Marx positively estimates large-scale industry and global market communications that can cultivate workers as universally developed individuals, while contrarily, Engels exclusively focuses on the negative and noxious aspects of large-scale industry, division of labor, and private property. However, his hypothesis on the discrepancy between Marx and Engels is based upon an arbitrary supposition, which can no longer be supported, as we demonstrate as follows. The new edition of German Ideology was finally published in Mega in 2017, which provides us with detailed information about the writing process of the whole texts of German Ideology, including the first chapter on Feuerbach. Hereafter, our research should fully regard philological data offered by Mega. If we take them into contradiction, we could conclude that there was never any sharing problem in the whole text of German ideology. So please go to page 17. Sorry. Okay. Page 17. For the sake of avoiding possible trouble with a publisher or proofreader, texts in the left-hand column was mainly handwritten by Engels. Subsequently, both Marx and Engels wrote down their revisions as corrections in the right-hand column. However, they made it a rule to commit the decision of the final form of the texts to Marx. The part of text handwritten by Weidemeyer was revised by Marx alone, which made us presume that Marx must have played the leading role. Even if Marx and Engels had different opinions, they discussed them together before they wrote down sentences in the left-hand column. Therefore, the difference of opinions between them was nowhere explicitly expressed in the left and the right-hand column. In February to 1845, Marx and Engels decided to dedicate a separate chapter to the criticism of Feuerbach. For this purpose, they detached the above-mentioned three bundles of manuscripts from those at first written for the criticism of Bauer and Stirner. After that, they concentrated on the text of three Sankt Marx, which were completed in April 1845. The editors of Mega presume that chapter 2, Sankt Bruno, must have been finished before that time. After Marx and Engels had finished all necessary manuscript for 2 volumes of their planned Vierteljahrschrift, they commenced revising and arranging the manuscript for the first chapter in June 1846. It is particularly important to regard the fact that while they worked together to complete the final draft of chapter 2 and chapter 3, they had already sufficient experience about the manner of how to cooperate with each other, how to deal with the two-column editing method, and how to cope with differences, opinions between them before writing them down on paper. If we adequately take into consideration the sequence of the texts of German ideology from chapter 2 through chapter 3 to chapter 1, we could hardly presume that just at the final stage of their cooperation, serious disputes or discrepancies between them suddenly erupted, as Mochizuki supposes. Page 18. I go to the section 2, how to deal with the so-called sharing problem. Mochizuki supposes that text of the first chapter on Feuerbach consists of 2 different parts, Marx parts and Engels parts, that are theoretically incompatible with each other, so that he attempts to anatomically dissect the whole body of texts of the first chapter to identify authentic Marxian texts that are not contaminated with Engels' idea. According to him, authentic Marx regards the universal development of worldwide universal communication combined with the universal development of productive forces positively as an indispensable basis for cultivating world historical universal individuals who are necessary agents of authentic communism, while he rejects any idea of the abolition of division of labor that Engels adheres to. I go to page 19. However, we must pay special attention to the fact that the idea of world historical universal individuals created by the universal development of productive forces and worldwide communication was not inherited by the Marx of the 1860s. While writing Capital, Marx became increasingly aware that large-scale industry and the worldwide market and the capitalism do not contribute to cultivating workers as universal individuals, while on the contrary, they accelerate deprivation of workers of any mental or intellectual elements in the labor process, and as a result, their dependency on the rule of capital. In Capital, we find a seemingly similar concept, das total entwickelte Individuum, welches verschiedene gesellschaftliche Funktionen einander ablösende Betätigungsweisen sind. In English, the totally developed individual for whom different social functions are their modes of actions to change places with each other. However, this totally developed individual who, according to Capital, is excluded from elements of mental labor in the production process and is able to solely work in a flexible way within the limited fields of manual labor does not match the universal individual that Marx imagined in German ideology at all. Together with a deepening understanding of the complete dependency of workers on the rule of capital in large-scale industry, Marx became increasingly aware of the importance of theoretical components that Mochizuki ascribed not to the authentic Marx, but exclusively to Engels, namely a series of theoretical aspects closely related to the idea of the abolition of division of labor. Firstly, perspectives for the overcoming of the antagonism between mental and physical labor became ever more significant. Secondly, through friendship with leaders and activists of British workers' movement and trade unions, Marx began to positively appreciate the existing producer corporations and in connection with these, pregnant potentialities of non-large-scale producer associations, which does not necessarily presuppose worldwide universal communication to overcome the capitalist mode of production. Mochizuki still adheres to his hypothesis of a sharing problem, according to which Marx and Engels contradict each other while cooperating for German ideology, so that he attempts to exclusively adopt the authentic Marx part by severing Engels' part. This bold decision drives him into a difficult position whereby he is not able to seize any theoretical framework to suitably comprehend Marx's theoretical development after the 1860s, while his own framework is only valid for Grundrisse, not for capital. In my opinion, both Marx and Engels' parts are indispensable components of Marx's own theory. Theoretical inconsistencies that we could find in the text of the first chapter on Feuerbach do not reveal a theoretical distance between Marx and Engels, but present a vast amount of manifold aspects of human history that even Marx himself could hardly integrate into a single consistent theoretical system at that time. What will happen to Marx's theory if we discard Engels' part and regard only Marx's part as belonging to the authentic Marx, has clearly been shown in works by Mochizuki himself. His interpretation of Marx could be characterized as a theory of Marx without any radical criticism of capitalism, which is therefore factually a theory of legitimation of capitalism in the form of Marxian philology. Firstly, he disregards theoretical components that are indispensable to radically criticize the capitalist system because he ascribes them to Engels. Secondly, he disregards the rule of capital in the production process of capitalist large-scale industry. As a result, he supposes a capitalist production process without capitalist rule. Thirdly, he disregards the overcoming of the division of labor in terms of the antagonism between mental and physical labor. I go to page 21. Sorry. So I have almost less than 4 minutes. Okay. Further, fourthly, if we consider all texts in which Marx mentions association in the later works, including Capital, we see that Marx's concept of association does not necessarily presuppose worldwide universal communication, which means that we must not relinquish Engels' part to fully understand Marx's concept of association. Finally, he disregards manifold possibilities of civilization in human history that Marx himself made his best efforts to comprehend and integrate into his own theory of human history. As a result, his interpretation of Marx's theory of human history is extremely Western Europe centrist. I don't read the quotation. Go to the next paragraph. In this chapter, We have demonstrated that Mochizuki's interpretation of Marx has much misunderstanding and narrow-mindedness about Marx. However, they are closely related to the spirit of times when he wrote the book. It was a time when post-war Japan had been experiencing miraculous rapid economic growth, and as a result, many Japanese were enjoying a rapid enrichment in life standards. Even Marxist social scientists of that time were deeply influenced by historical changes and enrichment in production as well as life standard achieved by post-war capitalism, while on the other hand, they were disgusted by the sight of economic failures and oppression of human rights in the existing socialist regime. Mochizuki was one of those who are fascinated with the success of post-war capitalism as a sharp contrast to the grotesque failure of post-war socialist regimes. He referred this post-war contrast to the contrast between Marx and Engels, namely Marx as a defender of universal development of productive forces and communication created by capitalism, in contrast to Engels as a whistleblower of capitalism that is concerned about no more than the negative inhuman aspects of capitalism. For most Japanese Marxists, social scientists, pre-war Japanese capitalism was not a normal type of capitalism, but its distorted form contaminated with manifold pre-modern residuals that prevented pre-war Japanese capitalism from developing productive forces and cultivating independent individuals. Unconditional surrender of Japan to the USA and subsequent rapid economic recovery of post-war Japan, which was possible only by the economic and political support of US-American capitalism in the framework of the post-war Cold War, made them aware of the necessity to positively evaluate what a normal course of capitalist development, which takes place only in Western Europe, achieves and will achieve. They attempted to discover in Marx a theory about Western European capitalism in its normal developmental process, and not a theory of how we should and could overcome capitalism. Mochizuki's theory represents a sort of Marxism at a time of economic success of contemporary capitalism. Therefore, every time and everywhere in the world in which capitalist development successfully takes place, we can find passionate supporters of his theory. I mean, so today's Chinese society, where his theory is very positively accepted. So thank you very much for your attention. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Tomonaga. It's very interesting and very insightful presentation. I'm also very interested in those concepts like Veröffentlichung and Verdinglichung. So let me give you some questions. So in your papers, you seem to have two different goals. First goal is to criticize Japanese scholar Kiyoshi Mochizuki in the context of Japanese Marxist history. I absolutely agree with your criticism on that point, but you may have another goal, that is to elaborate Marx's argument Veröffentlichung and Verdinglichung to understand contemporary capitalist structure and some debates. But on the second point, I think we need some more issues to talk together. So on that point, I think even though there are many issues, the critical issue is the relationship between those concepts presented in volume 3, Veröffentlichung and Verdinglichung, and another concept presented in volume 1, fetishism. What's the relationship and distinction between two concept groups? So my first question is the usefulness and significance of those concepts, reification and thingification to understand contemporary structure of capitalism and criticize the Japanese discussion. Because if we read some chapters of volume 1, like chapter 13, machinery and mass scale industry, or if we read the manuscript of remaining chapter 6, the consequences of direct production process, I think those chapters are enough to criticize that Kiyoshi's argument. So why should we need another concepts like Feodzaklingung or Feodinglichung to criticize those arguments? What's the usefulness of those concepts? That's my first question. And the second question is the relationship between those two concepts and the concept of fetishism. In some aspect, you seem to follow the old tradition of Lukácsian interpretation of those ideas. That means you seem to distinguish two groups to understand the concepts of reification, thingification as a kind of the theory of a social ontology or social relationship. And you try to understand the concept of fetishism in the context of epistemological approach, the kind of theory of social consciousness or false consciousness. It is kind of a typical Lukácsian legacy. But recently, there are other kind of new interpretation of fetishism theory. So we can understand the theory of fetishism as another kind of the interpretation of capitalist-specific social relations or capitalist-specific subject formation. So in volume 1, Das Kapital, we may have 3 different kind of fetishism. In addition to the commodity fetishism, we also have money fetishism and capital fetishism. And between money fetishism and commodity fetishism, there are some kind of mechanism, elaboration of the kind of logic. And also, so in some aspect, in my opinion, this kind of theory of fetishism try to display the kind of theory of power inversion from labor to capital. So it is not necessarily a kind of theory of consciousness. It is more powerful theory of social relationship. So it can be related with those two, Feodzaklingung and Feodinglichung. And third question is about the kind of unfinished Das Kapital, the issue of unfinished Das Kapital, because as you know, the sequence of writing Das Kapital actually starts from volume 3 and unfinished. Volume 3 unfinished, then Marx finished his volume 1, then rewrite the second edition, and then he tried to complete his second volume. So then we have a starting point, 2 concepts, Feodzaklingung and Feodinglichung. But on the second stage, when he write and rewrite his volume 1, he didn't use this concept, and he reinvented or reintroduced old concept fetishism, and he tried to show some aspect of his ideas. So, but if we imagine another Marx who might live longer and he might have enough time to finish his whole 3 volumes, then what will happen? What do we have? New invention of new arrangement, new elaboration of his concepts? Because after he elaborate his ideas of fetishism, then if he have time to write his 3rd volume, that what will happen with his former idea, Feodzaklingung and Feodinglichung, because he already elaborated his ideas on fetishism. And because in volume 3, one of the interesting point is we may find very interesting praise concerned with the interest-bearing capital. Marx uses mystification rather than fetishism. So interest-bearing capital is the culmination of mystification of capitalism. It is the Marx argument. So it is also related with the idea of fetishism, or it can be related with the idea of a kind of Verordnung and Versatzung. So that, but it is unfinished part. They're mostly unfinished part in his idea. So then what can we understand this kind of unfinished work of Marx? So that's my basic capital. Thank you very much. Yeah, open your microphone, Professor Tomonaga. Yeah, we can hear you. So yeah, oh, okay.
So please say again the first question. Second and third question, I understand. What is the first question? If my criticism is useful to Mr. Mochizuki, or what? Please say again.
Yeah. So what is a special usefulness?
Useful. Hi.
Yeah, of your argument on this reification and signification to criticize Kiyoshi's idea.
Okay. So in Japan, in post-Japanese society, there is a very strong Marxist schools that support very positive aspect of capitalist mode of production rather than negative aspect. So, and they know that Marx criticized capitalism. They know Marx in Marx's text lots of negative description of capitalism. But Mochizuki reduced such criticism to so-called, very tricky phrase, a veil of alienation. Negative aspect is characterized a veil. Under this veil, already socialist relations are prepared, was even in capitalist production relations. So socialist labor relations already exist. Therefore, so as I told, in his interpretation, Marx's interpretation, or there is no serious criticism to capitalism. In the name of preparation, the already existing of socialist way of life, even in capitalist system. So therefore, and one his technical term is so alienation is a veil. But if, as far as we understand reification and signification, especially on the level of signification, so alienation or negative elements of capitalist relations are united with the core of productive forces. Therefore, we cannot simply differentiate capitalist production relations and productive forces in general. Okay. So this is just what Marx Marx analyzes in terms of reification, signification. Especially signification is so the how shall in English, so quiescence, inseparable uniting of production relations and productive forces. So this is just what want to say or criticize in terms of the first point, first subject. Later, please criticize me again. Second question is very serious, and I generally agree with your comments because in my papers I just simply differentiate signification, reification, and fetishism because in Japan many Marxists simply identify reification and fetishism. And Marx's theory of reification is simply reduced to a theory of fetishism and the theory of commodity fetishism. Therefore, I would like differentiate signification, reification in terms of objective social relations and fetishism in terms of distorted consciousness. But this is just a starting point discussion. And as you rightly told that fetishism comprising very comprehensive aspects of so as you told, subject formation and also some power formation, and also I think all spheres who concern the so-called superstructure is comprise the elements of fetishism. Therefore, fetishism is not simply false consciousness. This is just the base of the whole bourgeois society, whole capitalist society. Therefore, we have I have to write another paper. If we explain signification, reification, and fetishism in a full implication.
Okay.
Therefore, I would like to go the same way, almost the same way, which you suggested in your comment.
Okay.
And the last third question is also very complicated problem. So the capital is unfinished. Yeah, and we don't understand so the whole range of Marx's thinking. If he could finish capital, we cannot approach to this final question. Therefore, we have to attentively or closely read the text. And so, but one important point that I would like to say is first volume. First volume is essentially the base of capitalist mode of production. It means this is not philosophically say the essence of the product capitalist mode of production. It means the so-called signification reification fetishism is not the main topic of the first volume. Although Marx mentions very many places, but the core of the discussion is what exists under fetishism signification reification. Yeah, and the proper field where Marx would like to explain signification reification fetishism is volume 3. Therefore, as you say, profit, bearing capital, what is Chinzen interest bearing capital.
Yes.
Culmination of fetishism. Yeah. And at the same time, so rent, land rent is another form of culmination. But I would like to say, so Marx, while writing the manuscript of the third volume, 1864-65, especially in the chapter of interest-bearing capital, Marx, for the first time, Marx clearly uses ding as a clear technical term. Ding different from Sache. Therefore, I think if he had another chance to improve the manuscript of volume 3, he could more develop his theory on reification signification. But so manuscript of for volume 3 is just once written. 1864-65. Therefore, we don't know how Marx improved volume 3 after finishing volume 1. Therefore, we have to discuss further. Anyway, but in many points, I agree with your comment. You have criticized my paper very well, correctly. I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have one question from audience. So Professor Tomonaga, if you open your chatting room, you can read the question. So I will read the question for audience. Question from Kangal.
Sorry, but unfortunately,
open your chatting room.
Yes, but today I
Can you read the question? So
fortunately, I cannot read.
Okay, I will read it for the whole audience.
Yes.
Thank you for your insightful presentation. It is truly inspiring. I have two questions from Kangal.
Yes.
First, in daily German, there is no obvious distinction between Ding and Sache. So why distinguish Verdienlichung and Versachlichung? It is a basic question. The second one is Hegel's concept of Ding is a relational one, as you said. Features of a thing makes the thing relational. Accordingly, thingification would amount to transformation of something into a relational entity. Do you think this is a problem for Marxist conception of Verdienlichung?
Okay. So, first question, German language. Ding and Zach are different words. Sache means Zache means more, how shall I explain, relational aspect. So in any, for example, German people say, this is unsere Sache. Unsere Sache. So, namely, this is our business, or our cause. So, Sache is not simply natural thing, but it's how shall I say? Something closely related to subject or subjective activity. On the other hand, Ding is rather natural, usual matter or stuff, material. And Marx himself, I think, okay, this is answer to the first question. And the second question is more important. Ding and Zache in reference to Marx and Hegel. So I have two or three papers about Marx and Hegel. The Marx's concept of signification and reification, according to my interpretation, is closely connected with Hegel's phenomenology of Geist. So in phenomenology of spirit, Hegel's phenomenology of spirit has a chapter of reason. There, Hegel differentiate Ding and Zache. And this is, according to Hegel, Ding means rather harsh necessity, or like natural law, rather alien power, how shall I explain, alien power to rule over human being. But Zache means in Hegel's phenomenology of spirit is a product of human activities of great amount of people, like Hegel quotes that, for example, Invisible Hand by Adam Smith. This is an invisible result of interrelations of human activities. It characterizes Zache. Therefore, Marx derives his differentiation of signification, reification signification from Hegel's phenomenology of Geist. So, which is another important subject, which I have been long concerned with. But this is, as I said, today I cannot in detail explain the connection between Marx and Hegel.
Yeah, so and now we have another question from Sung-Jin Jung, and I will read it for you. So it is about the implication of information technology. So you don't see any positive aspect of IT for post-capitalism? What do you think of digital commons? Association will be better if they are benefited by worldwide communication. What do you think? So
Yeah.
It's another aspect, another.
Okay. Okay. So maybe this criticism is right. Yeah. In my paper, I rather exaggerated way emphasizes on the negative aspect of IT, but my interest is that so it is very difficult to differentiate negative aspect and positive aspect of IT technologies because something which appears very positive, so in terms of worldwide communications, but this is not simply positive. No? This is also the use of worldwide power or the rule, the expression of the presentation of capital's rule over human beings. Therefore, I acknowledge there are positive aspects in the contemporary IT technologies, but I think it is very difficult to clearly differentiate positive aspect from negative aspect. Maybe I think positive aspect is always closely intertwined with negative aspect. Then if we simply regard only positive aspect, we are always so trapped in the capitalist ways of I think trapped. Okay, but so we have to discuss further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many issues to be discussed further. So the arranged 1 hour is nearly finished. So if you have any further question? Yeah. So then we wrap up this discussion, and so hope for another chance to discuss together. So it is very interesting discussion because so it is also related to understand Marx's idea on dialectics, so and dialectical interpretation of capitalist culture. So recently I have research on the Marx interpretation of the adjective social, gesellschaftliche. When he used this adjective, Marx emphasized the implication of gesellschaftliche is not neutral. It is very capitalist specific. Yes. It is also related to your argument about the Verdienlichung and Versachlichung. So another interesting point is in China, we have a very interesting scholar, Zhang Yibing. He published a book written to Marx. It also touched the issue of Versachlichung and Verdienlichung. But very interesting point is he reinterpreted these ideas by way of, with the mediation of Japanese scholar Hiromatsu Wataru. So it is kind of interrelated circle of discussion. So if we have another chance, we can share and discuss further about this, some changing ideas of Marx in his last time. So
yes.
Yeah, so I'm very pleased to talk with Professor Tomonaga today. And so I hope we'll have another chance to talk further. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Mara.
Yeah, let's finish it.